Welcome to So You Want to Start a Business podcast. Welcome, and I am your host, Ingrid Thompson. When I started this podcast, it was all about learning from and listening to business owners talking about their startup experiences and their lessons learned. And here we are years later, and we are still learning. Each episode is your opportunity to pick up tactics to try in your business. And no matter where you are in your business journey, every guest has their unique story, and while some of the themes are similar, honestly, in all of these episodes, I've not heard exactly the same answers to all my usual questions. We keep it lively, and informative. I'm Ingrid Thompson, and I'm a financial educator, and I've been running my own business, Healthy Numbers, for 20 years. And over that time, I've worked with literally hundreds and hundreds of people to help them build and grow their own business. I've written the book, So You Want to Start a Business, and you can buy that book anywhere that you buy your books online. Amazon, download, ebook, physical book, and we have the workbook to go with it. Okay, today's episode, we have Brook McCarthy, and you are in for a treat. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Brook McCarthy. Brook, hello and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And it's really lovely to talk to someone in the same time zone. Mostly I'm interviewing people who are in another time zone altogether. So lovely to be doing that. Okay, so Brook, tell us about your business. How do you describe your business?
My business is called Hustle and Heart. It is for values-based service business owners. And so people delivering professional services. And it's all about the paradox inherent in the name, Hustle and Heart, working for love and money, for profit and purpose, with kind of determination and ambition, as well as rest and self-care.
Wonderful. And you're right. It's that opposite ends of those spectrums, isn't it? We can often feel like that. So when did you start this business?
So I've been self-employed for 15 years, which makes me happily unemployable, hopefully for the rest of my life. But the first business I had was a digital marketing agency, and it was very niche. It was in the alternative health niche. So I did that for 7 years, and it was in that business, which I started in 2008, that I started evolving it towards training and coaching. So I had excellent timing, which I think was just good luck rather than, strategy or foresight. I started my business in 2008, which was the very early days of internet becoming more and more mainstream. So I saw my first iPhone in 2007 when my cousin brought it back from the United States. And 2008, I started my business. 2009, social media really started to take off in a big way. And I found myself very, very busy starting and growing different businesses, social media channels. And it quickly became clear that this was not just, a passing trend, that it was a massive, big thing, and that it was also quite easy for people to get on and do it themselves. So I started teaching social media and digital marketing for small business owners. And this was, way back when people weren't really, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to learn this kind of stuff. And I ran courses all over Australia. I ran away from my 2 very young children who were with me all the time, 2 kids under 2. It was chaos. My partner was also self-employed. The house was covered in, vomit and debris. And I was just like, get me out of here. I booked a flight to Melbourne and off I went.
Amazing. So it sounds to me a bit like getting away from things and serving an audience was what you wanted from your business. But seriously, what did you want from that business from day one?
The very first time I started my business, I wanted travel. I wanted money, of course. I wanted creative license. I wanted diversity of experience. I wanted to be able to just do things that I thought were a good idea without having to seek permission. I've always been allergic to that kind of, this is the way we've always done things. We do it like this because this is how we do it. Like, I've never been somebody that accepts that on face value. And I really like diverse experiences. So being in an office job, 9 to 5, felt like being in prison. And I just couldn't understand why everybody seemed to go along with this. Especially as the internet and laptops just, it became exponentially more accessible to be able to work from anywhere.
Yeah. And has it given you all those things?
I'm just about to get on an aeroplane next week. I'm going to Kuala Lumpur to run some training courses, and then I come back for a couple of weeks, and then we're off again to Europe for 6 weeks. So the short answer is yes.
It certainly is doing all of those things. It is. So is there a moment, and this is one of the questions that I really enjoy the answer to, because I've done hundreds of these interviews and no two answers have been the same. But is there a moment when you felt like your business was real? And what was that moment?
Getting paid. So I think, I speak to a lot of business owners. Some of them, are clients, and some of them are just people that I meet, in various places. And you'd be amazed by how many people continue a business that doesn't actually generate any income. And, I always have to ask, because I'm nosy. And so I'll say, have you had any paying customers yet? And people are like, not yet. I'm pre-launch. And I think, oh my God, kill me now. I think that the only rule of business, and the only kind of one thing it's about, is the exchange of value for cash. And I'm not talking about shareholders, because there's plenty of those businesses. There's plenty of businesses, that raise money through investors, and that's not my world. That's not something I know much about, and it's certainly not something that I'm inspired by or interested in. Real paying customers and clients, exchanging their hard-earned dollars for the value that your business sells is, what business is all about. So I started getting paid almost immediately, and within 4 months I'd replaced my old salary, and it was like, okay, this is definitely a thing. I can do this. I can make a viable income out of this. And it's what I help other people to do now as well.
Yeah, it's so true, Brooke. Honestly, changing the money, changing the value for cash. And you and I have known each other for a while on the internet, even though we both live in the same city. And I'm just going to take a moment now, because we met recently at an amazing event for the launch of a report about Micro but Mighty. And one of the things that stood out to me in that report is that micro businesses make operating profit of more than $174 billion in operating profit in micro businesses in Australia. So when you say you meet businesses who are not making money, it's absolutely possible, as the tiniest business, as the small business, as the medium-sized business, it's absolutely possible to make money. And I think that idea of exchanging what you give for cash, money, and profit is vital in business. And like you, I'm astonished at how many people continue to trade without actually making a profit or making money.
100%. I think it's a great name for a report, Micro but Mighty. I call our sector the invisible sector, because we don't get any publicity. We don't get any, attention. When Scott Morrison wants to get a few, and I noticed this during COVID when he was doing the kind of, hey, everything's great kind of fluff news articles. He'd go to a donut shop or a butcher or a baker or a candlestick maker where they have a premises and they have, customers he can see and products he can touch. And, what we're oftentimes doing is services rather than products. Not that there's anything wrong with products, but we are invisible because we don't get, any publicity and very little help or assistance. And yet we generate massive profit margins oftentimes. And I have clients, that are earning $500,000 plus, with huge profit margins in their spare bedrooms, and
with a laptop and the internet connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's phenomenal, isn't it? So you mentioned customers there. So that's a nice segue to the next question. So when you started out, you said you were that business doing more sort of online and helping people with that, and then you moved into the training and coaching side of it. And that's often what happens in a career anyway, is that somebody is a really great engineer and then they work in the training and development part of engineering. Like that's quite a corporate pathway of career. So, but over time, your customers have changed because, as you say, from 2007 to now, there's been a lot of changes in the technology. How do you find customers, and how do you, like, where do your customers come from?
So most of my customers come through my email list or through Google. I rank fairly well on Google for various search terms, relevant search terms. So that's been amazing. And I think, that this is a big question. And I think perhaps if I could be so bold, at the essence of the question is, what marketing actually works. And I get asked this all the time, what marketing should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And the answer is always yes. All marketing works. Instagram can work, LinkedIn can work, networking can work, pitching strangers can work. Like everything can work. But telepathy is not reliable, and you do have to do something. And you have to do something consistently. And when I say consistently, I don't mean, come rain, hail or shine, even when you're sick, even when you're on holidays. I mean, you have to keep showing up. You have to bring your energy, and you have to say something worth listening to if you want your marketing to actually translate into paying clients.
Yeah. And you've proven in 15 years of being in business that by you doing that, that is what has continued to draw customers to you.
Yeah.
So you said you got paid and you replaced your salary within the first 4 months. How did you calculate that viability, and how did you, we can kind of roll the viability and pricing question together here. How did you set your pricing? How do you set your pricing? Because this is one of the things that I know when people are starting out, particularly somebody starting out in a service-based business, is how to actually get their pricing and figure out their viability.
Yeah. So I did a profit plan, and the profit plan I did on the back of an envelope, which is perfectly fine and serviceable. Nowadays, I lead my clients through the same, and we do it in an Excel spreadsheet. We do it in a Google spreadsheet. But it's, it's the same kind of thing, which is, how much do I need to price at, and how many units do I need to sell in order to add up to how much I want to earn. A lot of people do this and they kind of overlook various things. They overlook, like I will always set an annual goal, an annual target, money goal, and then divide it by 10 months rather than 12 months because, Australians are pretty good at taking off, from Melbourne Cup to the first week of February.
Well, and if 2023 is anything to go by, half of Australia has spent from April through to October in Europe. So there's all kinds of things going on this year that are affecting businesses. Oh, there's a huge exodus to Europe. And you said yourself you're off for 6 or 7 weeks. So, yeah, I think that is really in some of the bigger cities, that is, and suburbs, that is actually really starting to bite into businesses.
Yeah, and we don't leave ourselves enough buffer. We don't leave ourselves sick days, holidays, public holidays. Things going wrong. So 10 months, rather than 12 months is a nice buffer. And then you've got a
great idea.
A monthly goal. But the number one piece of advice, and certainly what I did, is to ask everybody how much they have spent on something, how much they've paid for something. I never, ever, ever ask anyone, how much do you think I should charge? For a multitude of purposes, including, number one, you're just going to get a huge amount of answers, diversity of answers. Number two, it doesn't make you look very good. And number three, people will lowball you because they're like, oh, I like Ingrid. And if Ingrid's asking my advice, then I'll give Ingrid a low number so that perhaps I'll be able to get a better deal from her. But I absolutely, definitely always talk about money, and I blame, I don't mind. I say, I'm a business coach, please don't hold it against me. I need to talk about money. I got to ask questions, blah, 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 blah. Because how else are we going to find out? You know, how else are we going to know? And a lot of people tend to take to Facebook groups, which again is not a great idea, because you've got no idea who you're talking to in an anonymous Facebook group. You're probably going to be lowballed. I would far rather ask people, what did you pay for that website design? What did you pay for that branding? What did you pay for that business retreat? You know, than to kind of ask, you know, what would you pay? And, you know, I think that this is really useful for understanding pricing. What tends to happen when I give the homework to clients, go off and, you know, do a kind of a comprehensive survey of your industry, find out what other people are charging. They come back to me, they always come back to me with a massive big range of pricing. And then you can decide, okay, well, where am I going to sit in this range? And maybe this range is actually irrelevant and I'm going to price it completely differently. And I'm then going to I'm going to render my competitors irrelevant, which is a great place to be. But, you know, the point is, I think that people tend to take cues from those around them, and they take cues from their own self-confidence and self-esteem. And I don't think it's smart. I've also seen some very strange, you know, I've heard all kinds of weird and wacky stories, including, oh, look, you know, this was my old salary and I worked that many hours in my old job, so I divide that by how many working hours. Like, that's a dreadful way of figuring out what your rate should be. And then I've also heard people that have taken advice from other business coaches, and they have a very complicated thing where they take this and they add 15% and then they times it by 1.5 and da, 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 da. I just think, oh my God. So with pricing, I teach values-based pricing, which is figure out what your clients, who are your clients, what do they want, what is the transformation they're seeking, what is the value of that transformation, and then work backwards and price accordingly. You're pricing for the value you're delivering, not how long it's taking you, or how long it's taking you plus how do you feel about yourself, you know, in relation to your competitor.
Yeah, value-based pricing is absolutely for somebody in a service-based business. You know, a widget is a widget. Well, even that, you know, a handbag from, you know, here is $5 and a gorgeous handbag from somewhere else is 5,000 or 50,000. So, you know, it's all in the value, isn't it? So how, Brooke, and this is a little bit, so not off topic, because I know this is your favorite topic, is so if somebody decides they're going to charge a figure for what they're going to do, but they can't believe that that's what anyone will pay, how do you help someone get over that barrier? If someone's listening and they go, well, I'd love to charge this, but, you know, there's no one charges that, and how's anyone ever going to pay it? How do you help your clients come over that?
I think it very much depends on the individual client. Like, I use different techniques for different people because, you know, training is different. You know, I can teach people how to write sales copy. I can teach people how to put a good proposal together. I can give them a proposal template and say, you know, fill in the blanks. But coaching is psychology, and coaching is working with the individual psychology to figure out what makes them tick and to figure out how they can manipulate themselves, not me manipulating them, but them manipulating themselves to get the outcome that they want to get. So, you know, depending on the person, I'll use a different approach. The big one is to see evidence in the real world. And so what that looks like is, you know, I didn't think anyone would pay this. And this happens to me every time I raise my prices, every time, and not just like, you know, 1%, 2%, but I I put my price up by a good amount. I don't know if anyone's going to buy it. I've got no idea. I don't know whether, you know, I have done a sufficient job of communicating the value of that price to the right audience, but then the first person buys it and then the second person buys it. So with clients, I see this all the time, and oftentimes I'll need to remind them, hey, you sold this package before and the person, you know, spent 20 grand or 40 grand. Like, it's been proven to you that it's possible. So then we need to kind of rewire our synapses, because as you know, we have this negativity bias, which means if humans have survived for as long as we have, but it also means that we are always overlooking the positive and focusing in on the negative. So sometimes it's a process of reiteration. But what I really like personally with my own psychology, what I've found super useful is anger. Anger is my superpower.
Ooh.
And so what I mean by that is, I'll read data and research about women and the gender pay gap, and the fact that the gender pay gap in self-employment widens rather than narrows. I'll have experiences, or I'll read stories about women being bullied by clients, or being paid less for, than they paid the male contractor prior to their engagement. And that'll be enough to get a fire in my belly. And when I've got a fire in my belly, then I can do the brave thing. I can put the price up, I can change the terms and conditions, I can, have those uncomfortable conversations, or do something different.
I love that, Brooke. It's a real take that, Yeah. Now, if anyone's listening, and, I know that people who are listening are going to be fired up like you by what you've just been saying about pricing and value, and, coaching is psychology and it is individual how you work. What's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you right now? Because I know that, like, if I was listening to this and I needed your help, and I'd be going, how do I find this woman? And, most people are listening while they're walking the dog or something. And so what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
You could probably just email me, brooke@brookmccarthy.com, and there's no E on Brooke. So that would be the most direct way, I think.
Yeah. And your website is Hustle and Heart?
Website is hustleandheart.com.au.
And you have a new mastermind group starting soon. You were telling me about that before we went to air. What was that for?
I do. So I have a mastermind with a colleague, and I've worked with this person for a number of years now. He's actually more recently, he was my launch strategist in a couple of my group program launches. The mastermind's called Leverage, and it's all about creating, launching, and selling out your premium group program. So a lot of my clients move, this is a tendency that I've seen over and over again. They move from one-to-one work into group work because it's more leveraged. And that is quite different. And it's a bit of a learning curve. There's kind of common mistakes people make in relation to pricing, certainly in relation to marketing, service delivery, boundaries, the 101 questions that people have in relation to what do I put in a group program? What do I leave out of a group program? How do I deliver it? So this Leverage mastermind, it basically is a combination of coaching plus training plus done for you services, so that you're not getting stuck in, the speed bumps that trip a lot of business owners up when they're creating their group programs.
Yeah, sounds fabulous. So there's a few different ways, and of course you're on the social medias and LinkedIn's and everything. Okay, so back to your business. Exit strategy. Have you thought about an exit strategy? You said there you're going to be unemployable forever, but you kind of employ yourself. So you're employing yourselfable. So maybe is that a real term? Do you have an exit strategy, Brooke?
Well, I think a lot of business owners overlook selling, and I think that's absolutely, definitely viable. And I've seen it done in a variety of different contexts. So I've been coaching a client, one-to-one coaching, and she's just purchased a business not that long ago. I've had other clients who purchased businesses for as little as $2,000, so in effect, you're buying, an email database and a community. You can sell social media channels. You can sell, the business name, the website, the social media channels. So that's a possibility. Of course, you can always close. You can always just, walk away and close the business. But the other thing that I'd really like to be doing is I'd like to be licensing my methodologies and licensing my trainings. That's another possibility. And then my partner and I, because he's also self-employed and has been self-employed for almost as long as I am, or I have been, we invest as well. So we have invested in one of our friends' businesses, and I'd love to do more of that. We were talking about, micro businesses and the invisible sector, and it would be game changing, I think, for a lot of business owners to have access to 50, 100,000, as little as that, or as much as that, to make some big decisions and to grow and scale their businesses.
And the expertise that would go with that as well as an active investor or a quiet angel investor. Brooke, a reflective question. Take that magic wand, and you're probably too pragmatic to believe in those things, although you do have little girls at some point, so you may have come into contact with a magic wand. But seriously, what might you have done different, or what do you wish you'd done differently at the beginning, or some, just pick one.
How long? God, I made all the
Sorry,
mistakes.
listeners, I just wish you could see that visual.
Oh my God, I've made so many mistakes, and I'm not going to be one of those nitwits that say, every mistake has brought me exactly where I am, so I don't regret any of it. I regret so many things. I think that
something that would be useful for our listeners, that like if they could not do this, it would be helpful.
It took me a long time to have boundaries, and I think I see this on a lot of businesses, because people that tend to thrive in the first couple of years, like people that tend to come straight out of the gate, and make a success of it, tend to be capable, energetic, can-do yes people, and that was 100% me. So I really didn't say no as often as I should have said no. I didn't have my terms and conditions up straight. I did learn that, but it took longer than it should have. And I should have pushed back. I should have not tolerated bad behavior from clients for as long as I did. There was quite a few energy vampires that, I worked with that really just, suck you dry and spit you out. And I think energy vampires hate people with boundaries. They hate, clear and obvious terms and conditions that they can't run away from. So, learning how to say no more often, which means, backing myself, knowing that my skills were valuable, and giving myself, more pep talks, more kind of, backing myself in a more obvious way earlier on, I think would have been invaluable.
And is that, I'm going to jump to a coach mentor question. Is that where a coach mentor has been helpful to you in terms of, or how did you learn to do that better?
Just pretty much hitting rock bottom, really. Not rock bottom, it could have been worse, but I had 2 babies in quick succession. The second baby was a dream come true until she just stopped sleeping at 3 months, and then I wanted to throw her out a window. And the wheels just kind of fell off, and it became really clear and obvious that my business model as it stands wasn't working, and that I needed to change things up. And that was a painful process. If I'd had a business coach or a mentor at the time, I think it wouldn't have been quite so painful and quite so, angst ridden. So absolutely, in a situation like that. And when people apply for coaching with me, I'm oftentimes looking for that, because we are far more motivated as humans to get away from the painful than to run towards the positive. So being in a crappy situation and really needing to earn money, like really having that financial drive, is absolutely imperative. And I don't take on any one-to-one clients without that.
That haven't got that. Yeah. Have you had a coach? Like you talked about your mentor for your group program. Have you over time had coaches, mentors come and go yourself?
100%. I've had informal coaches and I've had formal coaches. I've been working with an American coach called Hunter Nealon for a year. I've just finished working with her. And I've leaned on various business buddies over the years. So I kind of call them my board of directors. They're not really a board, but I think that's really important. And to know that one person, like your romantic partner, they can't be all things. So, one person is really good for certain perspectives or certain things, but they're not great for other things. So knowing who to speak to and who to go to in different scenarios is absolutely, crucial. And, the flip side of that is to not take advice from anyone and everybody, because
Yes.
that advice is very, very expensive.
Yeah, it can be indeed. So do you think that asking for help and, that sort of getting assistance is something that you've developed over time? Or do you think you were able to do, I mean, it sounds like you had a pretty rotten time there at that throwing the child out the window kind of time, but I think everybody knows that feeling
Yeah.
at some point. But do you feel like you've got better at asking for help?
Yeah, look, I think I think my socialization is pretty typical of a lot of women, and especially eldest children, where I was really part of my value, part of my identity as a child was being really helpful, and learning how to ask for help and learning how to receive help, which are two different things, is it kind of goes against my conditioning, against my socialization, and it's something that I still struggle with. It's something that I still think I could get better at. And I think it's really prevalent among women as well, because that's a big part of our socialization, is being useful, being helpful, being of service. If we take that to the extreme, being a martyr, sacrificing yourself for other people's needs, for your family's needs, you translate that to business and it's a disaster.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. As the elder of two girls, I'm a super helper, and yep, I certainly have never moved into the extreme of it. Martyrdom's it's never been part of my operation Mondo, but that's super helper, and it's actually part of my DNA. Like I'd help before I've even gone, I'm helping. It's just you see things and you do things. So yeah. So, Brooke, it sounds to me like you take on businesses that are already in business, but if somebody came to you in that before business stage, I mean, you did say you've got people there who say I'm pre-revenue. So what would you say to somebody who says, I'm thinking of starting a business?
I think that it's really easy. And I think that if you want to do it and it's been squatting in your brain for years, you owe it to yourself to do it, to free up that invaluable real estate in your brain. I think that we overcomplicate it because we're so good at overcomplicating things. I think that you want to get the money in the door as quickly as possible. That's my approach. Get the money in the door as quickly as possible. Prove to yourself that it's a viable business as quickly as possible. You need that cash in the door for multiple reasons, including to invest back, into the business. And, as you make more, you can invest more. But certainly in those early months, you want to be very, very lean and not spend anything or as little as possible. And then as you're making a greater profit margin, you can decide, where you want to strategically invest. But self-employment really is the most accelerated form of self-development around. It will quickly become clear and obvious what your conditioning and socialization has been. It'll really quickly become obvious what your strengths are, what your favorite flavors of procrastination are, what your weaknesses are. And that kind of stuff is invaluable. One of the reasons I'm such a massive fan of self-employment is that the skills we learn in self-employment are life skills. They make you better at humaning. They make you better at being assertive, at knowing your desires, going after what you want, negotiating, confidence, resilience, resourcefulness, creativity, like all the things, and they'll make you excellent at time management. So, if you don't have a lot of time, great. If you've got great swathes of unbounded time, you'll tend to waste it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say.
And in that way, like I'm just thinking about, because that is a great way of doing it. If you're still working in a full-time job or kind of transition from full-time to maybe 4 days or 3 days, and then you're kind of patching together some time to run the business, that tiny windows of time teaches those skills and hones that very quickly, doesn't it? Whereas if you go from full-time to having your business and Yeah, I remember in my early days, people used to think that I had time to come for coffee and do stuff. It's like, no, I'm running a business. It's the business is being run here. Yeah, Brooke, this has been so much. I mean, I knew this was going to be a conversation that I would love, and it's so much more than I could have imagined. So before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything I haven't asked that you think would be helpful to the listening audience?
I have lots of resources on hustleandheart.com.au, lots of free resources. I've got a podcast. I've got a blog. I've been blogging consistently for 13 years now. Look, I think that life's short. We're all dying. And like I said earlier, if you have been thinking about it, if it is something that's stuck in your brain, don't try and rationalize your desires. Just go for it. You know, at the worst case scenario, it'll be a funny story. Best case scenario, it'll be the smartest decision you ever made.
Nothing more to say. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Yep, it just might be the smartest decision you ever make. Just love that from Brooke. What a terrific conversation, and I'm sure you're taking away ideas for your own business. Brooke and I both believe in that cash in the door model of business. It's not a business until it's making money. When it comes to calculating viability, Brooke's back of the envelope example shows that it doesn't need to be complicated. And I love what she says about the energy vampires. And truly, there are clients and potential clients to watch out for, and to absolutely have ways of maintaining your boundaries when they come into your business orbit. Terms and conditions and processes are really healthy way and a great way for warding off those energy vampires. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with another business owner or colleague, friend, or family. I'm grateful if you leave a review. We know that helps more people find our podcasts. For everyone listening, whether this is your first episode or you've been with us for some time, I truly believe that whatever you are dreaming about can become real. These podcasts are designed to inspire, educate, and inform about what it takes to start, create, and grow a business of your own. Make it easy to have all the latest episodes by subscribing to the podcast. As we always say, ideas without action, well, they're just that. They're ideas, and that's okay. My question is, what action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.